We can begin by talking about how to be our own therapist. We're here with Venerable Robina Courtin. I'm guessing, are you in New York right now, Venerable?
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, we can either, if you have any ideas that you want to ask or any questions you want to ask, by all means, raise your hand virtually um, or you can raise your physical hand. So thank you, Venerable.
Okay, so we, as usual, just state our purpose. The Tibetans say, state our motivation. And I'm not sure we hear that very properly, but all it means is what's your purpose? Sort of, what are we doing? Why are we here? In other words, what's our goal? So we make it something very altruistic. We think we're going to listen to these words coming from the Buddha's teachings in our tradition, through His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all these other marvelous teachers whom we've received our teachings from. About how to develop our marvelous potential as a human being, and then how to help others. Really, that's the essence of it. That's the essence of it. We think we're going to listen to this, it's going to listen to all this, see if there's some tools here we can take away and put in our toolkit and apply in our daily lives to do exactly that. Thinking that's why we're here together. So one way of saying about this path is there are two jobs to be done. One is the job on ourself, and one is the job to help others. They always talk about to achieve the two purposes, your own purpose and the purpose of others. So that's to achieve one's own purpose and the purpose of others. The job of doing it can be mixed. It can be with others or on your own, either way. But that's the thing, is to achieve the two purposes. So what are those purposes? Well, I mean, we look at this word Buddha. We're on the Mahayana path. It's very clear, really. The word Sangye in Tibetan, the equivalent of the Sanskrit Buddha. The etymology is very clear. It tells us exactly the job to be done. And so it's, in a sense, really simple. Technically, of course, to do it takes countless lifetimes. But if we understand the theories, it's really very helpful. So Sang implies, the first syllable, the eradication of all the neuroses in the mind. And Ge implies the development to perfection of all the goodness. That's really the simplest way of saying what you're doing as being a Buddhist. So you achieve your own purpose by doing all this work, and you achieve Buddhahood for your benefit, for your goal. And on the basis of this, you're able to, also help others, because that's what a Buddha does. So if it's true, we can rid the mind of all the rubbish. And if it's true, we can develop all the goodness. It's almost like a too simple way to put it. It almost seems too silly, too simplistic. If you said this to a modern neuroscientist or a therapist, they'd laugh at you for being so silly. It just sounds so silly, honestly, doesn't it? Get rid of all the rubbish from your mind. Of course, you say that to a neuroscientist, I get nervous. I think you're supposed to cut everything out. We tried that in the 1930s. We turned people into vegetables, didn't we? We're not discussing the body, we're discussing our mind. So the mind works at different levels. We've got sensory consciousness. I'm not trying to change that. It's our mental consciousness, our thoughts. And in the mental consciousness, we've got such a level of mind which we never access, but we can do that with all these marvelous techniques, and eventually we need to do that in order to do this job properly. That's why we need single point of concentration. But the level we function at is a very gross level, of the level of all our thoughts and emotions and the feelings and all that. And that's called that's the conceptual level of our mental consciousness. So we have to make this distinction, and this is a huge one. I mean, one way of looking at this is, and this is sort of a revelation, really. We don't necessarily talk like this, but if you listen to this and see what I'm getting at, it's extremely helpful. So one way of what Buddha's saying is, one of the consequences of doing this job of getting rid of the rubbish and growing the goodness, a simple way of saying the result of that will be the eradication of your suffering and the development of your happiness. It's a really simple way of putting it. And these words are huge in Buddhism. Happy feelings and suffering feelings. They're huge. So, and then delusions and the neurotic states of mind, that's a huge thing. And then the virtues. So there are really So if we look at the way the Buddha describes the mind, and we can just, and I talk about this all the time. If you've heard me before, you're going to have heard this. We can divide all the contents of our mental consciousness, the level we function at day to day, these thousands of thoughts and feelings and emotions that seem to totally overwhelm us and that are totally chaotic, completely jumbled together. You know, when we say we've got a negative state of mind and a positive one, it's very hard to see the difference because they're all mixed together. You know, it's like I use a simple analogy. If you have a completely overgrown garden, well, I mean, we know that all the weeds don't politely grow one end of the garden and all the flowers grow the other end. It would be very easy then, you know. But, you know, you can look in your garden till the cows come home, and until you learn botany, you will never see the difference. You won't. Why do you think looking every day at a garden will suddenly reveal to you that there's a rose and you want to grow roses, and there is a weed and you've got to pull the weed out? You've got to learn botany. So here we're talking Buddha's botany. We hear words like love, compassion, attachment, anger, jealousy, happiness, and these words sound very simple. They don't sound complicated psychology, but they're simple words, but the Buddha's definition of them, the Buddha's view of them is so precise. And if you really want to be a proper Buddhist, so if you say you're a Buddhist and you're trying to practice every day, then if you can't distinguish, even theoretically, between a neurotic state of mind and a virtuous state of mind, then how can you possibly do the job of getting rid of the negative ones and growing the positive ones? It's like a joke. If you can never distinguish between a herb and a weed in your garden, it's just all luck. You just cross your fingers and hope for the best, and it's totally useless. So it's very rare that even when we do study the mind using the Buddha's analysis, we don't quite know how to apply it, you know. So it's extremely important to know the difference between these types of states of mind. If you want to get rid of the rubbish, and why would you want to? Because it causes you suffering. And why would you want to grow the virtues? Because they cause you happiness. Not to mention your ability then to be a benefit to others. So it's so obvious, it's so logical, it's so evident, but we really need to understand this, you know. So then, of course, we think, well, what do you mean? I know what anger is, and I know what jealousy is, and I know what depression is. We know this. We have these feelings, but we don't know them at a more subtle level. We know them at a very gross level. We know the feeling. You know, there's some kind of vague feeling. It's anger, and you got to get a vague idea that she's angry because you hear her shouting. You know, but it needs much more looking than that. It needs much more awareness than that. You know, and it just isn't enough to start to look into your mind and get mindful and look into your mind and then assume because you've calmed down a bit that suddenly you can see the states of mind. You can see, and this is the point I'm going to get to, which is very difficult for us to hear, that we can begin to see the conceptual thoughts that inform. Feelings are very gross because we only notice we're feeling these things because our body feels it, and that's just too late. And we give such power to these physical, we say it's physical. We feel it in our body, we say, as if somehow that's so special. But it's too late by the time it gets to the body. This is not how we think in the West, that's for sure. So let's look at this. If we want to make the distinction between the neurotic ones and the valid ones, the virtuous ones, so we can lessen the neurotic ones and grow the virtuous ones, we have to start getting some concentration or even begin to make effort to focus our mind so we can begin to hear what's going on before they get to the level of the body. That's the skill. This is the skill we have to practice. So, let's say, okay, so if we live at the grosser level of mental consciousness, and if at this grosser, and that includes all the virtuous states of mind and all our conceptual thinking and all our theoretical thinking and mathematical thinking and musical thinking and cooking recipe thinking and political thinking and everything, all the thinking we do. But in our culture, we go thinking and then we point here and we go feeling. Fine. but they are all rooted in being conceptual thoughts. This is very surprising to us. And initially, it seems quite a hard thing to get to. So let's try and prove it, you know? Let's try and prove it. So let's say, let's say let's say your kid is shouting. And as soon as you walk in the room, first you hear the sound from the distance, this person screaming. And you immediately recognize by the crying and the irrational words coming out of their mouth, you kind of immediately recognize it as anger. You go, oh my God, here she goes again. She's angry. So it's very true that she's got very strong feelings. Her body is completely her body is being violent. And so we assume that's anger. Now, let's say you have her sister who never shouts, never raises her voice. And so we go, oh, well, her sister's not angry. But that sister has, okay, so when we understand that anger is not just the physical, and that's what we think it is, and because a person is quiet or they don't have anger, but when we understand that the anger in the shouting person is coming from the thoughts deeper down. And the only reason a person, I mean, only reason a person is shouting is because the habit of those angry thoughts in their mind have been there all their life because they brought them with them from past life. You don't learn them from your mother. My mother didn't have to teach me to be angry. I had it down. I knew. So when we say instinct, I find this very helpful. When we say, oh, it's instinct, we mean it seems to come out of nowhere. It just seems to be natural. No one taught you. But that in one good way is exactly saying what Buddha is saying. We come into this life programmed with our past tendencies. So this person who's a little girl who shouts easily, she's obviously got the habit of having angry thoughts because the emotion starts deeper down with thoughts. And those thoughts, like I said to you, my mother didn't have to teach me to have angry thoughts. I had them so easily in my mind, and then immediately it will become a strong, because they were habitual, they were emotional. So whatever we call emotion is because we've got the habit to think like that. A person who's emotionally jealous or angry or attached or has low self-esteem or depression or anxiety, they're just a bunch of conceptual thoughts programmed in our mind, and we came into this life programmed with them from having practiced having them before. That's why they seem instinctive, because we've perfected them. I mean, if you see a person sitting down at the piano and they immediately start playing the piano, it's because they've practiced and practiced and practiced, and now it's virtually instinctive. They've now perfected the musical theory. They had to squeeze their brains in the beginning to learn it all, and then they got into the habit of memorizing it, knowing the meaning, and their fingers played it until eventually it's spontaneous. That's why our anger, that's why paranoia, that's why jealousy, that's why attachment, or love or compassion, exactly the same. They're a bunch of habits. So if you've got a strong tendency for compassion and empathy and kindness, and not a strong habit of anger and depression and anxiety, then no one has to teach you. You come into this life like that. You'll be expressing as a very little girl. You'll express already what's in your mind. But we, of course, in the West think that our mother made us and our father made us, and that we're created by conditions, I mean, we are affected by external conditions, but we come into this life already programmed. And this is a huge point to take into consideration. But the key point I'm trying to get to, it all comes down to being conceptual thoughts. So you could even argue, I mean, one of my simplest examples to prove this, let's say you get those two little sisters, you first one who does the shouting, you get a tape recorder on or your iPad or your iPhone and you record her. And what are you recording? Think about it. Her body is shaking. Her voice is shouting, you know. Her eyes are wide, tears coming out of her eyes, spit coming out of her mouth. But if you just record what she is saying and you transcribe it on a piece of paper, there's no shouting anymore, is there? What do you got? What have you got on that piece of paper is words. And what are words? I mean, like, duh, they're conceptual thoughts. You're going to read the words. Oh, he is evil. I hate my father. He is the cause of all my suffering. I hate my sister. I will kill her. You can deduce, because you understand English and you understand the meaning of those words. Oh, wow, she must be angry. Well, what do you think anger is? The body and the words are just the expression of the actual anger, which is in her thoughts. How can you say it's not that? It's not possible to be anything else. And why it's strong is because she's practiced having those thoughts. And then when you do the analysis in Buddhism, then what is this anger? Don't worry about whether it's her brother or her sister who caused it. No, that's not the point. Anger is the response when her attachment didn't get what it wanted. And that's the one that's much more subtle. You know, you cannot see that. We don't even notice that. Because this attachment is at the level of assumption. And the attachment is this constant little junkie in there that only wants what she wants every single moment. We don't even notice this. In fact, in our daily lives, we don't even notice that we've got attachment until it doesn't get what it wants, which is when we get angry or anxious or depressed. It's only then that we notice we have attachment. So attachment's so subtle, and it's so, for everybody, is just there. We're programmed with that one most of all. Everybody has this huge, hungry, emotional neediness in our mind that always wants things to be the way I want, you know? So now, before I go further, let's go back to her other little sister, and who doesn't shout. But let's say this other little sister, or maybe she's a big sister by now, she knows her mind. She knows her thoughts. She's been doing meditation, let's say. And she says, well, you know, I've got angry thoughts. I just don't express them, that's all. So we ask her to write down on a piece of paper all her angry thoughts. So if you now have got two pieces of paper, one which is the transcription of the shouting, yelling little girl, and one is the words coming out of the mind of the other sister who writes down her angry thoughts. Now, both of you look at two pieces of paper, and each of us can see easily that both of these people, oh wow, they're really angry. And you see the same words on the quiet child's piece of paper, and hers might even be more heavy. They might even be more negative, but she doesn't shout. So this is why our understanding of what we call emotions is too gross, you know. We just think it's all on the surface. That's why we don't see people's minds at all. We only know a person's angry if they shout. Because we have no idea about the mind. And we don't know our own mind either. That is the problem, you know. So then what I'm getting to is so simple, but it's surprising to us that all these emotions, as we call them, you know, they are just the tip of the iceberg. All the thoughts are underneath, which are our tendencies as we're born. We've brought them with us from past lives. And then in our life, we just play them out. We're not conscious. So this little girl who's, let's say, both of them have got attachment. Both of their attachment wants what they want. One of them has the habit to be volatile and to shout when she doesn't get it. And the other one has other methods, you know. She becomes passive aggressive, or she walks away, or she gets depressed, you know. But it's the same. It's both conceptual thoughts, but each of us got our own little package. And this is why we absolutely have to pay attention to our thoughts. Don't wait for the feelings to come. It is too late. I can't express this enough, you know, and that's our trouble. We don't even relate. We don't even think our emotions are conceptually based. It sounds ridiculous. It sounds like a joke to say that. That means we don't really understand what our anger is. It means we don't really understand what jealousy is, or what paranoia is, or what depression is. We just call them feelings, you know? It's not nearly enough. It's way too gross. It's just not enough clarity, not enough subtlety, not enough analysis. Because if Buddha says you can get rid of attachment and anger, he's not meaning you just give up the feelings, you just stop shouting. No, way more subtle than that. This is the fundamental point in Buddhist psychology, you know. So how do you learn? So you have to learn to listen to all the thoughts. And the trouble is, there's 1,000 thoughts a second. I mean, Western psychology says that. That's why it's a tremendously hard job to do. And that's why we have to begin some kind of practice. Well, maybe we're not going to get concentration in this life unless we give up sex and drugs and rock and roll and go to the mountains. No. We have to learn at least to sit there for 5 disciplined minutes in the morning and pay attention to our boring old breath, or pay attention to something that we decide to pay attention to. It's hard work because our mind is berserk and we just want to follow every crazy thought. We know that. And of course, the other trouble is too, because we hear the crazy thoughts, we can't stand them. They scare the life out of us. We don't want to know about our crazy thoughts. We want to make them all go away. You know, or fill them, or rush off and eat the drink, or do the video game, or do everything to avoid looking at our mind. It's too painful for us because we don't know what to do. We don't know why we even think what we think. It's too terrifying for us, you know. We know our mother didn't teach us, so we don't even know why we want to kill a little pussycat or go and rape somebody. We don't even know why, because we don't pay attention to our thoughts, and then we're going to blame our mother or our father or somebody else because we don't know our mind, and we don't think it came from the past, and we don't think of it as a bunch of karmic tendencies. That's why the karmic view is so powerful, because it enables us to own what is going on in our mind, you know. And then of course the other one is, if we think our mother made us or God made us, and we came into this life as an innocent victim, and someone makes me angry and makes me depressed and makes me jealous or makes me loving and or makes me kind, then of course you're going to blame everybody else, you know. So it's not a question of blame, it's a question of listening, paying attention. And we've got to have some kind of focus, got to develop, even to make the effort, 5 minutes in the morning, to make the effort to use some simple concentration technique. You know, you're not going to get far, but at least the one benefit from it is that you're developing the habit, even for 5 minutes, of stepping out of your head, and you can't help but hear, even more loudly, you're going to hear the crazy thoughts. And that's what we think we're getting worse. I mean, Pabonka Rinpoche, when he describes the 9 stages of single-pointed concentration, the classical method that's been around for 3,000-4,000 years, that the Indians invented well before the Buddha, of how to get this incredibly subtle level of profound focus. You know, as Pabonka Rinpoche says, the technique is divided into 9 stages of gradual development of the concentration. And he says, even at the first stage, he said, one of the signs of success is that we think we're getting worse. We think our minds are more berserk. No, we're just noticing them for the first time. It's scary as hell, you know. So the trouble is now, of course, I will use the simple, dumbest example. Let's say you've got a husband and he slurps his coffee at breakfast and it makes you crazy. I mean, I'm talking simple examples. You know, before you started to practice, you go to the kitchen, you know perfectly well he slurps his coffee, and you know you can't stand it, and you don't want to shout every day, but you can't help it. So before you know it, it's out the mouth again, you know, and you're being mean to him. Look at us. We're completely pathetic when it comes to family. We can't control anything, isn't it? And it's too late. The words are out, isn't it? It's incredible. But if you begin some practice, even a few minutes in the morning, you do your bowls, you do your water bowls, you take your refuge, you do a little mantra, you do a bit of concentration, already you're becoming more internally conscious, more aware of what is happening inside you. So then also because you realize your habit of, you know, shooting off your mouth at your husband. And this is the one too that is also another powerful point, which I tend to stress a lot, is we don't make this distinction in modern psychology at all, but the difference between the mind and speech. We think it's my right to say exactly what I want to my husband. We actually think that I've got a right to tell him to stop slurping his coffee. We really believe we have that right. Well, if you want to have a harmonious life, if you want to have a disharmonious life, yes, you have the right, and you'll see where the results come. But if you want to work on your mind, one of your first practices is control the servant of your mind, which is your speech. So then you make, if you start to practice, you'll make a firm decision to yourself. Okay, Robina, you're going to zip your lip. You're not going to say one word. Now, we don't like to say that in the West because we think it's called suppression. We call that suppression. That's not suppression. That's intelligent, conscious awareness of your own mind and your intelligent, conscious decision not to vomit your feelings onto everybody else, which is totally self-centered. So when you make that decision, you go to the kitchen, the slurping is happening, but now, because you've been paying attention to your mind, you can't help but notice the thoughts before they get to the level of the mouth, which is emotion. And you shut your mouth. This is like miraculous practice, and tremendously hard. And it starts with this awareness, one point. Second, with the understanding that all our emotions are just the tip of the iceberg of all the thoughts that are deep down, which are habitual, and the distinction between speech and mind. It's huge. It's huge, I tell you. This is profound but simple level of practice every day. And it's the opposite to suppression, Suppression is denial. You don't even know you're thinking it. So that's why we think we've got to vomit it out in order for me to hear it. That's total nonsense. And we're so rude to each other, so outrageously bad behaved, especially among families, it's, familiar people. It's just shocking what our speech does. I mean, we know how hard it is. And this is the thing, if we can't control our speech, how in the name of heaven can you ever control your thoughts? At least you start with your speech, And you'll transform your life. If you in one day can control your speech, consciously, intentionally refrain from saying negative words to other people, you will change your life, I promise, And again, remember, speech, which is at the emotional level, it's the physical level, really, speech and body, They're the grosser level. And if we can come, they say when you're with others, you control your body and speech. When you're on your own, you have the luxury to look at your mind, And we have to know, and that's why we have to have this self-awareness and some kind of self-respect about where we're at and what we can handle. I mean, I always joke, the 40% of all women on the planet who get murdered are murdered by the bloke in the same bed, practically. And this is not about sexism or men. It's about attachment. So two people living together with no control over their thoughts, no control over their feelings, each with all their attachment that the other person should make them happy, each angry when they don't do it. And then, of course, one person is going to die, There'll be 40% more women on the planet if we can control our speech. But the point is we have no self-respect. That's the trouble. So what I mean by that is we don't know what's good for us. So if you're an alcoholic, if you have strong craving for alcohol, but you sort of just don't realize that, you should be keeping away from alcohol, what do you think the result will be? But we don't have enough self-respect. We run like a magnet to the alcohol, and then we blame the alcohol. Well, if you're living with a person whom you're always angry with, and you see the danger to yourself and to them, and you're not aware, the first thing is you should leave, get the hell out. Now, if you're addicted to video games, if you're addicted to violence, if you're addicted to cigarettes, one of the first levels of practice, forget your mind, it's too complicated, it's too advanced. You've got to remove yourself from the objects. It's so obvious. I remember vividly an example for me, when I was a little girl, there were 7 kids in our family, and we didn't have enough beds. We were poor. 7 little things. My mother had 7 babies in 8 years or something. We're really poor. We shared beds, right? And I mean, we've all got different kind of personalities. We're all kind of bossy, but I was a bully. I was this mean little girl to my sisters and my brother. And 2 of my sisters got asthma, and we'd have to, swap. We'd rotate sharing beds with each other, and I'd practically kill my poor sisters with asthma because I was so distressed and so upset. I couldn't handle my mind. I was out of control. And of course, it's not appropriate to put the pillow on my sister's face to stop her wheezing. Get my point? But I couldn't control my mind. I was a little girl. So my poor darling mother didn't have the luxury, to give us separate bedrooms. We had no money. But what happened was when I was 11 or 12 and I was really naughty and I was kind of dressing up in my mother's high heels and wearing lipstick and going down the local, trying to seduce the greengrocer's son. And she freaked out completely. And then she sent me off to boarding school. Well, I became a saint overnight. It was the best thing that ever happened. Do you understand me? I couldn't access all that virtue in me. I didn't know my own mind. All I felt was I was fighting for space, Oh, my other sisters as well, but that was my way of dealing with it, was shouting and yelling and being a mean little girl and being naughty. So when my mother sent me to boarding school, I can't describe the miracle. The entire everything changed. And because I was in this quiet condition, I had my own bed, I had discipline, we went to mass every morning, I was in love with God, I was in love with Our Lady, I was in love with the saints, and suddenly this external condition enabled my virtue to come to the surface. I saw that with my Mexican gangster friends in prison. All their lives living on the streets of Los Angeles in their gangs. They knew nothing else. They sent off to prison into their own cell. The ones who had karma with Buddhism, they became little meditators, So when we have this, so these 40% of those women who get murdered have had even a shred of self-respect. You recognize your own attachment to be seen and loved is so grotesque, and their violence is so difficult. Get the hell out of there, baby. That's the very first one. So have some self-respect, know the external condition that is not good for us, keep away from those people, keep away from the cigarettes, keep away from the alcohol, keep away from your damn video games, throw your computer out. Of course, we'll all go mad. It's like giving up alcohol. It's terrifying. But it makes it too difficult for oneself. And truly, if you can't handle that husband and his slurping and whatever it is before you kill him, maybe best you don't go to the kitchen while he's having his breakfast. But we don't have enough intelligence to have this awareness. We just kind of blunder along and then blame everybody else or blame ourselves. We're not aware of what we need. Because we're not aware of our own mind. Now, my mother couldn't see what was good for me. And then she had to force me to send me to boarding school because she was worried about me. But it was the best thing that ever happened. Suddenly, because the external condition was conducive and enabled me to go into my mind and become more disciplined and study for the first time in my life and discover this religious aspect of myself, which I never saw. I knew it was there, but I wasn't able to nourish it. So the external conditions are huge, Are we communicating here? So I think we need a bit of questions. It's 36 minutes. I haven't stopped talking. So I've talked about several things here. So please ask me some questions specific to what I've talked about.
Venerable, we have one from
go on, to drink my drink.
Go right ahead.
Who wants to say something?
Alvin wants to know what is the simple method to practice for 5 minutes daily? Is it meditation or is it just paying attention to your thoughts? Is there a way to do it? And then
that's meditation, Alvin. Sure. Who was that? Avon, is it? Mm-hmm. Who asked that question, Jim? Avon?
Avon.
Okay. Who's Avon? Where is he? Oh, hello there. Ask your question, sweetheart.
Yeah, it's a fascinating concept, and I'm just curious, how do you practice it daily?
I understand, yeah. I mean, like anything, you got to start simple, And one of the ways, it's a really good discipline to start the day, if you can. I mean, most of us have, I don't know, if you can, to start the day, have a little place where it's your little spot to sit. I mean, this is already incredibly important, I mean, as a little girl, if I'd had a little place to sit that was my spot, you can begin to sort of, it's really important. If you're living in a house of six people and there's nowhere to turn, it's very, very difficult. So if you have one little place where you can sit on your own and have it as be your space and just make a decision before you start your day, you're going to sit. I mean, it's so simple. It's sort of logical psychologically. And so-called meditate. There's so many kinds. Don't worry about that word. But just sit there and kind of, there's simple little meditations, for example, using your breath. There's a really nice little meditation where you just breathe in and you breathe. You imagine breathing out all your stress and your anxiety, and you breathe in all your so all the goodness of the world. I mean, there's something you can make up your own ideas. It's really simple, and it's just psychologically beneficial because you're steadying yourself, and then you make you decide, okay, today I know what's going to happen. I know who I'm going to see. I'm going to watch my mind. I'm going to watch my speech, and I'll try to control it. You make some decisions, and you start your day with that. Already just setting, instead of just falling out of bed and jumping into life and going crazy and feeling like we're a victim of all the things that happen. It's in a sense, it's a way of getting a little bit of feeling you can control, you know. We all want to. It's nothing cosmic about it, I promise. But it's got to be disciplined. Like everything, if you don't do something every day, you won't get good at it, you know. And of course, there are lots of meditations, and also on this, you know, like on the center that we're here today, they do morning meditations, guided meditations. That can be very helpful. You just sit there and you do these different guided meditations for 30 minutes, you know. And there's a lot of stuff on YouTube. You got to find you got to find these things yourself where you fit and where you belong, you know, even there's so much going on. There's an awful lot. But is this the first time you've been to this center tonight? This one this afternoon?
I was here last week and I talked about some of my issues with my daughter, and you talked about a few approaches on that. So really appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So then I think, on this center has morning meditations. There's things on YouTube. Just you got to find your way. I mean, I'm not trying to make it too difficult, but I mean, starting with just 5 minutes of your own, I promise you. And almost it's just like optimistic thinking, positive thinking. Okay, mate, you're just going to do this, going to breathe in and out, or just even a simple meditation. You just decide you're going to focus on your breath at your nostrils, and you pay attention to the breath going in and going out. You let the thoughts come, you let the thoughts go, you let the noises be there. You're training yourself to be disciplined, you know. It's a very simple kind of exercise. And then in the middle of the day, when things go crazy, you get into the habit of staying in control. We know how easily we can be thrown by the smallest thing outside. So it's training ourselves to have some discipline, inner discipline. Do you understand me? It's like that. And you start with something small, and then you go to this class, you go to that one, you go to this talk, you find your way in it, Avon, I tell you. What do you think? Is that good enough?
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Good,
Yeah.
John. Good. Go on then. Joey, sweetheart, talk to me.
Yes. Good evening, Venerable. When you talk about us having 1,000 thoughts a second, or 1,000 thoughts a minute, whatever it is, I'm not sure if I have some kind of like a mental retardation or something, but Venerable, I don't even think I have 1,000 thoughts a day. Is that normal?
No, well, you could no. I would say that's impossible because all I know is these people who report this in the Buddhist one, when you start to get what they call concentration, and I mean I'm talking quite subtle concentration of the mind, then you're literally learning to become familiar with your own mind itself, and you're going to see. I mean, it is 1,000 thoughts a second. We literally have them, but we're not. But some of us, it depends on the kind of person, you know. Some of us are more aware of our body. Some of them are more aware of the feelings when they get to the body. We're more aware. Some of us are very triggered by the outside world. But every second you are alive, there are thoughts there. So many you can't believe it, but we just don't pay attention, Joey, and that's how many of us even think. Which doesn't mean you're stupid. It means your senses are very vivid. You know, sensory consciousness is one thing. The object of the senses is the sights, the sounds, the smell, the taste, and every second we have a sensory experience. Our mental consciousness is having an opinion about it. If you have you get annoyed with something, you're attracted to something, you like something, you don't like something, they're all thoughts, darling. Love and compassion, they're all thoughts. But by the time they come to the surface, when our body feels them or they get to our speech, they're at quite a gross level. So we're talking at a very subtle level, and we're really going to notice that there are these thousands of thoughts. And that's really the job of being a Buddhist. We get more and more sophisticated in our ability to hear the thoughts. And there are layers and layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of them. It goes to an incredibly subtle level.
Okay, that's helpful. So
Good
just
thought.
keep on and
Keep going, baby. Keep going.
All right. So more thoughts. I'll notice more the more I
Notice
continue.
more, and then gradually you'll be able to identify the negative ones, the positive ones, you know. And there are signs of all this. I mean, it's like, you know, and Yeah, there's no question. It's very fascinating how
Okay.
subtle the mind is.
So no mental
That's all these
retardation?
Indians. I mean, more than 3,000. What, darling?
I made a little joke. I said, so no mental retardation?
No mental retardation whatsoever, darling. Not in the slightest.
Okay. All right.
Good.
Thank you, Venerable.
Okay, darling. Who is that then? Who is talking to me? Nikki. Hello, sweetheart.
Hello, Venerable. It is wonderful to see you, and I hope this evening finds you
Good.
well.
Yes, absolutely.
I am working very hard lately. I've had myself in a retreat mode, and I'm wondering about noble silence. Somebody like myself, I have a real habit of spewing my speech
That's right.
everywhere,
Exactly.
all the time.
That's right. That's it. So then,
I love
yep.
what you said about what gives us the feeling that we should put our feelings on everybody else,
That's right. Yes.
And I'm wondering if noble silence could be a trick, a way, a wisdom to break the habit, to begin to break the habit, because I have
Okay,
no
so Nikki,
space.
depends on, so Nikki, it very much depends on what context. Are you just talking about if you live in a house of 5 people, suddenly become silent? I would suggest that's a nightmare. If you're living on your own, yes, it's a good idea. If you have to go to work every day, no, that would be absurd. So the first step would be to control your speech. That's a good one. But to actually be silent, that even also necessarily is not if right. If you've got quiet people who don't shout and yell, they are happy to be silent, but often it just becomes passive and depressed. It's not virtuous at all. The key reason to be silent is is part of the process of learning to become in charge of who the hell we are. And of course, in a retreat situation, that will be brilliant. Even a 1-day retreat, of even a 1-day retreat and shutting your mouth for 1 day, you're being conscious mentally and you're making this firm decision to shut the mouth. Wonderful, wonderful practice. But just to be silent just for itself is not necessarily beneficial if it doesn't help you see your mind. The only reason to be silent and can calm the body down is so we can begin to become familiar with all of our thoughts and start to unpack and unravel them and be in charge of them. Do you understand? Good one. Good one. Somebody else there. Someone else there, Jana? Nobody? Nobody else? Huh? Nobody. Okay. So, okay, Shav, go. Yes. Talk to me, sweetheart. Talk to me, Shav. What's happened to Shav?
We're just asking her to unmute, so.
Okay, good. All right. No. Well, working out with Shav, we'll have Michelle meanwhile. Go, Michelle. Talk to me, darling.
Yes, I recently have given up a bad habit, and it's been about 8 weeks, and it's even it's coming into my dreams now. And I'm wondering if you have any advice of um, what I can do. Like, I even knew I was dreaming because I was like, no, I'm not doing that anymore.
That's wonderful. Well, that's good. That really shows it's becoming right in the front of your mind. It's a wonderful thing. It's not distressing you having it in your dreams too, is it?
I was a little stressed that it's popping up in my dreams
But it's
because I
good.
feel like
No,
I'm strong.
no, darling. It's really good to be in your dreams.
Okay.
It's excellent. It shows that you're really being aware and conscious.
Because I can
No,
even
that's
be
good.
around it physically, and I say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not partaking in that. I don't want
I mean,
that.
it's a good sign. So be happy. Be
Okay.
happy. No, be happy. Rejoice. Be happy. Don't be obsessed about it. Be happy and rejoice. It means you're conscious. It's strongly in your mind. It's really good. They say that, like for us monks and nuns, if you in a dream you protect yourself and realize, no, I can't do that. I've got a vow. That's a really good sign. So it's very good, darling. It's excellent. Well done. Congratulations. Okay. Go on then. Yes. Did we
Chef,
organize Gav?
you can unmute now.
Yes, sorry about that. I got bumped off.
Okay, darling, talk to me.
So what about the concept in oversharing? Like when you're helping people, but then you overshare. How do you know when
Oh, darling, this
giving
is huge. I know, huge, huge, huge. But when you say, but you didn't just say overshare, but you said helping people. So what's the
I'm a
context that you're
chiropractor,
describing?
so sometimes I get excited and I'll be helping people and I'll just not know where to stop.
Okay, that's a very nice point. That's a very good point. That's a brilliant point, actually. That's a really good point. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so uh we've got the compassionate side of us and the wish to help others, which is your job. If you don't have that, you're in big trouble.
Right.
Yeah. So then have that wish but then what makes us uncontrolled is the other part of us called attachment, which gets a bit overexcited. And that's the uncontrolled part. So that kind of pollutes the compassion. And in a way, becomes when it becomes unwise. It becomes too much, you know. I know I sort of recently been trying to find, I decided, especially my chiropractor sister in Australia, we're both at our old age, and she's had disc problems for years, and she started Pilates, and it helped her completely transform her body. So I've taken her advice, and I've been trying to find a Pilates person, and I've been to 5 clubs already trying to find the right teacher. And some of them, I can see this, they're so good, but they're completely out of control, you know, and they don't stop. And it's exhausting in the end, because they do mean well, but when attachment gets in, attachments is caught up in ourself a little too much. We put ourselves too much in the picture, in other words. That's attachment. Do you get my point? So to keep it focused on what the person really needs. Some people need more advice, some people need less. Some people need it quietly, some people need more encouragement. So it's to remember that that's what wisdom is. I mean, Dalai Lama says compassion is not enough. You need wisdom. So you've got to have enough awareness, be consciously always aware of the person and what they need from you. And then you will give them what they need. And other people might want extra. So you've got to have that wisdom. And as your own attachment it's sort of like that's the part of you that sticks its nose in a bit too much. Do you understand me?
Yeah, I totally understand. I do understand. I'm
Really
becoming
good point.
aware of it. So
What, darling? What?
I'm becoming aware of it.
Good. This is brilliant. This is
Yeah.
excellent. This is excellent. So wisdom, they talk about wisdom and compassion. So the compassion one is not enough just to want to help somebody. And you can see that if you didn't have chiropractic, what good would you be? You know, you've got to have the wisdom to know how to help. But that also means the way you present it. That's the wisdom part, and how you present it to the person in front of you. And that's going to be different according to each person, isn't it? Each patient.
That's right. That's
right.
right.
Keeping yourself always keeping the compassion side. Keeping yourself out of it. In other words, keep yourself out of it. It's a good way to put it, I think. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Serve and then step back.
Exactly.
Don't be attached to it at all.
Exactly. This is so important one, and that takes skill and time. But have that wish all the time, you know. So that means if you had to spend another 20 minutes with the person, you would. But if you didn't have to, you wouldn't. You'd have the wisdom to know what's best for that person.
Yeah.
It's like being a wise parent, you know. You got to know. I mean, let's say some patients always complain and moan and complain and moan. And sometimes your job isn't to always answer their questions and try to make them better. You might just be, oh, really? Is that true? I'm sure you'll work it out. Another person needs detailed advice. You've got to get a feeling of where the person's coming from as to how much you give them. Do you understand me?
Yeah, and that's discernment. I'm realizing it's taking a lot of practice within myself.
And that comes if you've got your own little practice every day. Do you have a little meditation practice or something?
You know, I'm not consistent.
No,
so
that's it.
I need to add consistency
I think
to that.
Start your day, because this is where you see when attachment, this is another very interesting point, especially in a helping profession like that. Let's say, not saying you, but let's say there's a person who's got a lot of skill, could be chiropractic, could be anything, and the patient is really in trouble, doesn't seem to get better, has serious problems, then we think, and then we get all exhausted and we take it all home with us. And then we tend to think, oh, well, I'm exhausted and tired because I've got compassion. No, Shav. The reason we get exhausted and tired is because our attachment gets overwrought and we get distressed because we think we haven't been useful because somehow they didn't get better. But that's not your doing. So we've got to have the ability to want to help and then leave it there. You know, not have your own, not get our own rubbish involved in it. And that really does take practice.
That is gold. That is gold.
You
That is
understand?
100% what I'm realizing. I've noticed
Yeah.
the days I detach
Yep.
are the days I feel better.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So I know I found that when I had to work with people in prison, because as much as I could help their mind, I still had to leave these guys in these garbage dumps, you know, in the prison. And then sometimes people get overwhelmed by that and feel guilty and feel bad and don't, you know, because you can't make the prison go away. You know, you can't, if a person's, you know, paralyzed from the neck down, you can't do more than you can do for them, and the rest is up to them. What you can do is show love and compassion, but not have this anxiety and guilt because you haven't fixed them. That's a huge one, I think. Do you understand me?
I understand. I've also, another awareness I've realized, and I don't know if this correlates, but the people that I'm attached to helping with the outcomes, I don't get rewarded for it. Like they'll abandon me as a doctor or something will go wrong. And the ones that I have the boundary with, where I do what I'm supposed to and then I'm detached, I get the most reward from, not looking for the award.
No,
or the
there you go.
reward.
So I think that's a very good point, because that means there's all this neediness in your attachment, is this kind of involvement. You stick yourself in. There's a neediness to be seen and heard and respected and thanked. And then we get so hurt when we don't get it. No, you're absolutely right, Shav. And that's why if you do what you can and get pleasure from that, then yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very good point.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Keep going, girl. You're doing beautifully.
Thanks.
Good. Okay, you darling people, I think it's time to go. 5 minutes or something. Any particular points there? So then, maybe is Avon still there? Are you still there? Maybe we can do a little 5-minute meditation.
Yeah.
Avon, should we do that?
Yes.
I'll do a simple little one, just watching the breath. We'll just use a simple example. I mean, it's simple technically. To accomplish success at it is another discussion, but it's good to have something to start with, you know. So I'll do a little 5-minute session going through each step. So then just settle down, everybody. Have your body comfortable. Don't try to think, oh, I'm meditating. Don't make it all holy. It's practical psychology. So have a comfy chair if you don't like to sit cross-legged, and where you know that for the 5 minutes you won't have the kids coming and jumping on top of you. You need to have that privacy for 5 minutes. And you just sit in a comfortable chair, not so comfortable that you go to sleep. So you should sit upright. It's important to not sit in a too comfy sofa, but sit in a chair where you have your feet on the ground and hold yourself upright. Sit upright, okay? And you relax your muscles. So sit upright, but then relax the muscles. Then you can have your hands in the meditation gesture, if you like this, left underneath, right on top, thumbs touching, or just put them on your lap as you wish, in your lap or on your knees as you wish. Your shoulders upright, muscles relaxed, and then your head slightly tilted forward, chin tucked in a little bit. Your lips apart slightly, and then this is odd, but it's from all the great meditators over the centuries who meditate a lot. It prevents you from dribbling and spitting too much, swallowing the spit, but only for 5 minutes. It doesn't matter. But have your tip of your tongue behind the top teeth, just near the palate, and your mouth, your lips slightly apart, and breathing through your nose. So settle into that. Then your eyes, just a few minutes is good to have them lightly closed, but have your eyes looking down as if you're looking along your nose. So your legs, your hands, your shoulders upright, muscles relaxed, chin tucked in, tip of the tongue behind the top teeth, lips slightly apart, eyes looking down, okay? That's an ideal position. So you sort of settle into this. And now what we're going to do is just 5 minutes, or even could be 3. You say to yourself, okay, Avon, or whoever you are, you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to pay attention to my breath. You make an intention. I'm going to pay attention to the sensation. So you can choose many objects, but the one here is simply the sensation of the air as you breathe in and out. So you first locate it, that sensation. It's slightly different when you breathe in and breathe out. It's slightly different at the tip of your nose. So first just take a couple of breaths and locate that sensation. Just be clear about what it is you're going to pay attention to. Very natural breaths, don't force. So that's what you're going to pay attention to. Very simple, theoretically simple. To do it with discipline, it really does take discipline. Okay, so you think you're going to pay attention. So what's going to happen naturally for that 5 minutes? Thoughts are going to be coming. Every second there'll be thoughts there. Every second there'll be thoughts. And we're so used to sort of swimming in the thoughts and the feelings. But here, it's almost as if your life depends on it. It's almost, I find this a good example. If you're driving a car on the busy freeway, 6 lanes, if you don't pay attention, you'd crash in a minute. So you pay enormous attention, but you're not stressed. You're paying attention to what's exactly in front of you, but it doesn't mean you don't notice all the other cars. So when you're watching your breath, it's like that. You're going to pay attention with just firm decision, but even the thoughts are all there. You don't make them go away. You don't want them to go away. You don't try to understand them. You just simply pay attention to the breath and kind of mind your own business and let the thoughts come and let them thoughts go. That's the job. So you pay attention to that breath. You notice it go out. You notice it come in. You notice it go out. You notice it come in. That's all. And then if your mind wanders, which it will, you simply bring it back to the breath. Okay, that's your job for 5 minutes. You're going to pay attention to that breath at the tip of your nose and breathe very naturally. Just the breath. Keep your mind alert. Let the thoughts be. Come and go. It doesn't matter. And don't space out. Keep your mind alert. Bring them back to the breath and then keep alert. Don't space. The other, either you get busy and you space, or you space out, one or the other. But keep alert. Just on the breath. Another minute, okay? Okay, that'll do. So that's about 4 minutes. So be delighted and just 5 minutes in the morning, starting with this, and then a few decisions like thinking now, fantastic, I made an effort to watch my mind, and today, and it's the beginning of the day, you know, I'm going to watch myself today. I know who I'm going to see. I'm going to control my speech, at least have some kind of sense of controlling my speech. It's a very, very conscious decision to make. It's very powerful, you know. And that means you can then have more space to notice your thoughts that drive the speech. So here we are at the end of the day, or partially. We delight that we've done this. All these seeds we planted in our mind, we delight, and may we nourish the seeds with our effort from this moment forward to continue to control our body, speech, and mind for our benefit, and then too for the benefit of others. Changchob sem chogrin poche, ma panam ke guchig, panyampa me payang, gong ne gong du abasho. Okay, darling people. Happy to see you all. Keep going. Never give up, okay, all of you. And rejoice in your heart, in your efforts. That's the main one. Okay, darlings, I'm leaving now.